Hey guys, it's another beautiful day in Southern California. I'm hanging out with Joe Marcoux from Easy Motion. Hey. And we've got just a fantastic couple of bikes here today. And I'm gonna be focusing primarily on the Easy Motion Rebel Lynx 5.5 27.5 plus PWX. What the heck, man?
It's a long name.
It's a long name.
It explains exactly what it is.
Indeed, it packs a punch. And
absolutely.
This other one, so this is the Easy Motion Rebel Lynx 5.5 27.5 Lite. And it uses the PW motor versus the PWX motor. The difference being about a pound.
Yep.
This one, it's like 7.7 pounds. This was like 6.5 pounds. The Q factor, it's a little bit narrower. It offers up to 80 Newton meters of torque at
120 RPM.
At 120 RPM, right? Versus just 100. So it means you can spin faster on that other bike instead of switching gears to get that motor support back. So that's something that I've been a real big fan of. There are a lot of other, mid drives, including you guys have some with the Broza S that supports up to 120. Bosch has the CX motor up to 120. So this is kind of keeping up, and it's an e-mountain bike specific motor, just kind of better in every way, but it might be a little bit more power hungry, especially if you're putting out those 80 Newton meters of torque. I don't know though, the PW has been one of the more efficient and quiet, and I like the motor for certain applications. My personal choice for off-road, especially if you can spare the coin, is the PWX.
And keep in mind, this one comes with a 500 watt-hour battery versus the 400 watt-hour. It also comes with the plus-size tires versus the 2.35
with boost hub spacing.
Yeah.
So that's a bit wider.
And it's got the dropper post. So you're losing features on the value proposition light.
Mm-hmm.
And for a rider like myself who's not hardcore, whereas a guy like Nick from our office who is an unbelievable rider, this is totally up his alley.
Right. Well, and that's so $49.99. So we're talking about $5,000, 5-year warranty. You guys have great warranty support.
Best warranty in the industry, bumper to bumper or fender to fender, lifetime on frame, 5 years on all parts, 2 years battery, 1 year in-store labor on our whole catalog.
Great network of dealers.
Absolutely.
And we're talking global here too. So, there's a bunch of dealers. How many did you say, like in North America?
In North America, we're closing in on 200.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
So, being able to go in and stand over one of these, because it does come in 2 frame sizes, when you're in the saddle and trying to throw the bike around, getting the sizing, especially with a heavier bike. So this is about 51.2 pounds versus 50.2, only 1 pound difference. And this one saves that pound. I think part of it might be the battery. The battery is only 0.2 pounds different. I did weigh them independently, but it's like the hollow spindle on the PWX, the smaller form factor.
You're also going to be looking at those plus size tires, and you're also going to look at that dropper post that's going to add a little bit of weight. So
they pack a lot in. Yeah, this has an 11-speed drivetrain, and he's mentioning this plus size tires. Let me just get into this thing and zoom in a little bit. So these are Schwalbe Nobby Nic 27.5 by 2.8. Plus is 2.6, 2.8, or 3. So this is kind of right in the middle. They've got the wider rims, really nice here. 32 spokes, 14 gauge, high performance stuff. And by having the boost hub spacing, that's 148 millimeters in the rear and 110 up front versus just 100 and 135. So the little bit of extra width gives you a stronger bracing angle on those spokes, which is kind of nice. That's a little bit of extra weight. Through axles, so 15 millimeter up front, 12 in the rear. Quick release, that's one of the benefits of having a mid-drive motor. Here's the Yamaha motor itself. You got a little plastic skid plate, but otherwise it's kind of naked, and it just looks good, right? The Yamaha, the logo, just how compact this thing is, the positioning of it, really nice. But you can see the quick release back there. So if you have to do some trail maintenance, it's going to be a little bit easier on a mid-drive bike like this. This is class 1, so it's allowed on more trails and stuff. It's just designed to be blending in a little bit. The battery is external. It's not built into the down tube or anything, but that makes it a little bit more modular, so you could swap it back and use a 400 watt-hour pack if you wanted to, or maybe you're traveling and you want to ship the bike, but they don't let you, fly with those high-capacity lithium-ion batteries. So on location, you could borrow or rent a battery. I kind of like that. It's easy to take this thing off, just insert the key over here, and then it would tip out to the side. I like that it has a handle built in and a little battery level indicator, so you can tell, like, okay, well, do I need to top it off? I haven't ridden for a while. By the way, you want to store these batteries in a cool, dry location. Extreme heat and extreme cold can be kind of tough on them. You also don't want to let them, drop down below 20%, because that starts to stress the lithium-ion cells. But anyway, coming back to the battery, see how it's the same setup, the same configuration? And then this is the battery charger. Not my favorite. It's a little bit long and you can't unplug the wall side, so you kind of have to fold it over like this if you're putting it in your pack. But then again, it's like, where are you going to charge out here? I guess we'll get into range on the menu. It gives you a lot of feedback, including battery percentage, so it's a very precise feedback here. And I think that the battery pack itself, once you charge this thing, if you get the 500 watt hour pack, you're going to be able to go really far. So if you're going the distance, like, that's another reason to maybe upgrade and pay a little bit more. But this is not a bad bike. I mean, we look at the Suntour suspension. It's still got compression adjusted, still an air fork and rebound right there. And then we've got, again, a little bit less fancy, but the Suntour radon in the rear. I want to call out this direct mount chain guide, because the Yamaha mid-drive system, that's one where you could actually put a derailleur on there and have a couple chain rings and turn this from a 10 speed with Dior up to maybe a 20 speed if you have a couple rings on the front. Same thing over here. We have 11 speed in the rear, much larger low gear, so it's 11 to 46 tooth, the Dior XT with, this is the one-way clutch, so you can put it in the down position. It's going to make it easier to get the wheel off, or if you're just on relatively tame, like smooth terrain, as soon as you click that in the up position, it tightens the spring and you get less chain slap. But I love that they've got these slap guards built in, and then there we go, there's the direct mount guide again, so you're not going to be dropping that chain. 36 tooth on the chain ring, aluminum alloy, and it has narrow wide teeth, so that's going to keep the chain on track as well. You're not going to have like slipping and dropping. The pedals, not too bad for like a stock pedal. These are alloy platform Welgo. They're not super big, but you're probably gonna swap those out, maybe some magnesium pedals or something like that. And then here's the suspension that we were talking about before again. So Fox Float DPS dual piston system, Evol extra volume. This is nice, and it's got the clicker right here, so you've got compression adjust, and then back down here rebound, so there's rebound on the rear as well, compression adjust, and then firm, so kind of an almost lockout setup. 34 millimeter stanchions, a little bit thicker, black anodized. It's a nice fork, right? And it blends in really nice. I like the color choice here as well. So it's like kind of a matte black with some glossy highlights. The blue carries through to these ergon locking grips. Gotta love that. And then we've got the Cellar Royale Verve saddle with a kind shock dropper post. I measured this at 140 millimeters just by doing it myself, but the website says 125, 31.6 millimeter actual post diameter if you wanted to swap that out for something else. Here is the dropper lever, pretty clean cockpit, and then the PWX display really tightly tucked in, so if the bike goes down, it's not sticking way up and gonna get broken off. However, it's not removable. It still has the micro USB port down here, which is really nice, easy to reach button pad. It just looks a little meaner, a little kind of tougher. If we come back to this one, you can see that the display panel is removable, right? And then there it is. There's a little micro USB on the left, still a remote button pad. I don't mind this one. I think it works pretty well, and it just doesn't have the like angular look. But you see how the display is maybe a little bit more vulnerable, even with the slight rise in the bars. It's just sticking up. It's way up there. Might be a little easier to read. It's larger. There's kind of some different configurations. I've done a couple videos just explaining, doing deep dives on these displays. But otherwise, this one doesn't have the seat post dropper, and it's got these 3-finger levers from Shimano, locking grip, but it's not the ergon. So again, just a little all-around kind of upgrades. Definitely appreciate that. And one thing I like about these SLX levers is that they have tool-free adjustable reach, and they're 2 fingers. So these are, definitely more premium. You don't need the 3rd finger because you've got a 203 millimeter rotor up front, SLX dual piston calipers front and rear, 180 in the back. So again, 203, 180 versus 180, 160. So it's a step down. You don't get the mechanical advantage. Those wheels are going to be slightly lighter because, again, it's not plus size and everything. Running this tubeless would be a pretty great setup, and you could drop the PSI even more. I've recorded all those stats back at the website, but 17 to 38. 17 is really low pressure, and you're just going to be able to float with these tires a little bit more, add some comfort, add some traction, especially in soft terrain like this, and just be able to power over things. It's a joy, especially with motor support here. So that's why a lot of electric bikes are going with the plus size tires lately.
What's unique about it is that you're going to see that your wheel link, your brake link, and your control link, what it is specifically is a single pivot rear suspension design. So you're going to get better pedaling efficiency, better braking efficiency, and ultimately what it boils down to is your shock absorber is going to be doing what it's supposed to do, which is absorb bumps. The linkage mechanism is designed to be able to take away those added forces of acceleration forces and braking forces here, and translates it into the chain, as opposed to having this doing all that extra work. The other benefit of split pivot is it allows the bottom bracket to be raised a little bit higher. So what's going to happen is you're going to have less pedal action hitting the ground and whatnot.
Pedal strikes, yeah.
Pedal strikes and whatnot. The other thing that's interesting about split pivot is you'll get less of that that bobbing action.
So when you're climbing?
Right.
Yeah.
So you know what happens when you're in a car, for example, and you're hitting the brake and then you speed up and you hit the brake and you speed up and all of a sudden you get that back and forth.
Yeah, rocking the boat.
That you're not going to experience that with split pivot, and that's something that's unique. So I think what happens with a lot of people when we're looking at electric bikes, I
feel like the wheel goes up and down a little bit more than that rainbow effect on some of the other suspension designs. And we were talking about chain kickback with a mid-drive. You know, that's your motor and you are pulling on that chain, and so you really don't want that to be that length to be changing dynamically when you ride. So this seems like a pretty good suspension setup. I am not an expert on this. That's why, you know, it's nice to hear Joe's perspective. I welcome your feedback as well. One thing about the Yamaha mid-drive system, any of them, they don't have shift detection, at least now. And that's something that Bosch does have. I've seen on a couple of other Bafang or some other systems out there. But because this measures your rear wheel speed, your pedal cadence, and your pedal torque, you certainly don't have to be mashing those gears and wrecking that drivetrain if you just kind of ease off a little bit when you shift. They do have this sort of zero cadence like start, so it's very responsive, it's very powerful. And I am not having a trouble shifting, but it's something that's a little bit more advanced where it's like, okay, it's up to you to kind of keep your eye on that a little bit more. And I really like the 1x setup. I think this offers plenty of gear range, especially the 11 to 46. I mean, that's a really nice low gear.
There's, you know, we have a lot of dealers and customers that have said that thing looks like a dinner plate on the back there as far as granny gear, first gear, which is true because now you've got the PWX and a large first gear that allows you to get up to these really, you know, steep climbs, which is great. This is what this bike's all about. Why shuttle when you can get on a Lynx 5.5?
Well, and we were talking to Nick about what kind of bike is this? 140 millimeters of travel front and rear. Again, air, so you can adjust the sag. This is a nice setup. And he's like, well, you know, maybe this is trail, like some all mountain.
Yeah, I mean, the industry in and of itself at 140 mil, you can definitely call it trail, all mountain. It'd be a little on the short side to be enduro, in my opinion. Again, that's just an opinion.
Yeah.
Industry-wide, I think it'd be safe to say, based on this setup and split pivot, all mountain, you could definitely do it on this bike.
It's interesting though too, like the way that they've got the stem set up. I think this is 90 millimeters. So, you know, I see people bring the bar back a little bit and have those shorter stems for like a different body position on descents. You can adjust a lot of that yourself. You know, this is 780 millimeter bar with just a slight rise in it. Again, I've got all the specs and stuff back at the website, but it's a very purpose-built machine, and you can see the wires are all internally routed, and they got those bigger ports right here. It's going to make it easier to service, and that's something that the dealers really appreciate. And I just like the two sizes and the lowered top tube. This is hydroform tubing, so it lowers the standover height if you have to jump off. And it's not just, you know, okay, I can easily stand over this on the flats. When you're descending something and you need to stop, like the ground might be unstable, you might put your foot in like a hole or a divot. So it's nice to have a frame that's set up to make room for the suspension down here, but also to keep that standover height really low. And I like the battery comes out sideways instead of up like the Bosch system. You know, it keeps the battery casing a little nicer. You're not going to bump into the frame that way. But of course, there's no room for bottle cage bosses, no fender bosses or rack bosses. That's not uncommon for full suspension electric bikes. You got to have the Camelback or something with you. Otherwise, I think it's great. Can you push down on that saddle just a little bit? I'm gonna like just partially, okay, and then a little more. Yeah, I mean, this thing, it's not one of those notch systems. Like sometimes you see the droppers where it has 10 different positions.
Right, no, this is infinitum. Find the comfort level that you want and go.
Yeah, so I'm gonna keep this in, like, what is EXPW? Extra power?
Extra power.
You might have noticed that it stopped there at the end. That's because I exceeded 20 miles per hour, up to like 22, just pedaling. This is flat, not hard to do that. But that's what it sounds like at different levels. Definitely the higher speed that it's spinning, not necessarily that you're going, but you know, if you're in a low gear and you're spinning fast, the pitch rises for sure, but it's still a relatively quiet motor. Okay guys, from here you can see that 36 tooth chain ring up front. You should be able to see this chain rolling through. I'm gonna shift through some gears. I'm in high power mode, and yeah, just get a sense for how this thing accelerates, how quickly it stops, and what it sounds like. So Joe just went to get his helmet on. He's gonna ride on the plus size upgraded version. I'm just on the cheaper one with the PW. Take it all the way up to high. There you go. Braking. Yeah, so you see a little bit of dive there in the front, and that's back to how you set it up and maybe with the compression. I can definitely hear his motor. Now I'm gonna point you down at the PW motor, just get some feedback on that sound. Yeah, it's definitely noticeable to me. You know, it just doesn't have that zippy feel that the extra power mode does. Yeah, it just feels a little bit more subtle. Still capable. You know, I've been climbing around with this motor as well. Not a problem out on these trails. But when you wanna, maybe you're descending and you're in like maybe a higher gear, and then you're going to climb and you're like shift down, shift, 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 so you can climb and spin and like keep the bike going. This motor's not going to support you at some of those higher pedal rates. Oh yeah, there we go.
That's about my limit, right? Wait till we get Nick or Greg over here, and then those guys will show you what this bike can actually do.
Looking good, man. This is awesome. So Nick's going to drop down this and just give us some jumps, listen for the motor noise, you know, suspension. He's a great rider, and he's got clipless. Nice. Even able to catch some air. It's pretty sweet. I can hear the humming of the motor just a little bit, especially when he's climbing. He's going to come back this way for us now. Fantastic. Thanks. I was able to get a couple different angles. Can we have a little chat here? I know we're kind of in the way, but if we stand off the trail. You okay right here?
Yeah, give me 2 seconds.
Catch your breath? Yeah.
Yeah, whoever says, you know, that getting on an e-bike is an exercise, they're full of it. I mean, this is an example of, you know, people who ride on a regular basis, And whether it's mountain or whether it's road, I mean, you're using an electric bike, it's pedal assist. It's not do it for you.
Right.
That's the problem that I have with people that are down on what we're doing. We're helping people get on bikes. That's the bottom line. And now we're helping people who used to ride at this level back on bikes and having a blast.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
And we got to put Nick in the black out in the full sun, right? Fully hot. Are you doing okay, man?
No, I'm good.
Well, that was fantastic. It was neat to see you jump and actually toss the bike around, but you are a bigger guy. You're like 6'1", 6'2"?
About 6'1", yeah.
Wow. What do you think? You work at Easy Motion or BH, but your honest opinion, what do you normally ride? What's this like compared to that?
Honestly, I've been spending a bunch of time on the e-bikes, as well as my 5-inch travel 29er.
Nice.
And a little bit heavier, but every bit as all of the geometry that we develop trickles into all of the bikes that we make. So everything's designed to be super capable and super fun to ride.
It looked fun, and pretty responsive. Having done both the PW and the PWX, PWX is
a noticeable, more instantaneous power.
Absolutely.
Surprising at first, but very welcomed once that first hit comes by.
How about the weight? This bike's like 51 pounds compared to your 29er. I don't know how much that weighs.
Yeah, right, about 28 pounds.
Right.
Because with the mid-drive motors and everything, with the weight so low, you feel it a little bit when trying to lift the bike up, but as far as handling goes, doesn't affect it a whole lot.
It's positioned well, like right there at the bottom
nice
racket.
Low center of gravity, right around where your bike is pivoting anyway when you're leaning into a turn, so it doesn't affect it as much as one might think.
Are there any concerns or things that, as you've ridden these bikes, where it's like, well, this is something you got to be careful about? I noticed you kicked my camera. Thanks, buddy.
I told you. I warned you.
You warned me. It's like a pretty good rider, man. He's going to be going for it.
Got some big old ski feet. Riding wise, it rides like a regular bike. It's a touch heavier. You got to think about it a little bit more.
Yeah.
You want to throw some bigger brake rotors on there, get you slowed down a little bit quicker.
That's right. Yeah, we got that here.
Not a huge difference going from a carbon trail bike to these bikes.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate your time. And Joe, it's been fantastic. Thanks for. He took the cross out, right? Hardtail. So he's suffering on the bumpy sections.
I need a Lynx with split pivot, man.
This was great. Well, you guys, we had a lot of fun out here. It's great to get to explore and put these bikes on the trails where they belong. For the full write-up, I'll see you back at ElectricBikeReview.com. Of course, chime in with this comments or corrections or whatever. We're doing our best out here. And of course, have fun, be respectful, ride safe.